Hello students, in this particular video we are going to cover chapter 7th of class 6th. The name of the chapter is India's cultural roots. Okay, so students, in this particular video we are going to study about the Vedas, Vedic culture, Buddhism, folk tribal roots and Jainism and all related to this. But the common question which comes to the mind of students, that is why we have named the chapter the cultural roots, that how it is related to these topics. So actually students, in earlier times, we compared the Vedic traditions and cultures in the form of roots. Okay, like a tree. Okay, so trees are having roots and then we have branches. Okay, so what we called the roots represent the common traditions, while the branches stands for different parts of India, cultures, its arts, and its literature, its science, and all these. Okay, that's why we have started with the chapter of Indian cultural roots. Okay, and now we are going to study about these Indian roots and its branches. Okay, so let's start the chapter with this intro. First, we have the Vedic and Vedic culture. Okay, so what is Vedic basically means? So Vedic is derived from a Sanskrit. I'm sorry, from a Latin word. Okay, and this Vedi means knowledge. Okay, from this we have derived this Vedic term. Okay, so Vedic, what is this? What does it mean? It is very old and important books from India. Okay, so this is very old and important books from all the books of India, full of rhymes, prayers, teachings. Okay, they are some of the oldest books in the world and shows what life was like. That means this book teaches us about the life, about peace, minds, and about so many important factors. Clear? Vedas were passed orally for many years. That means through orally, people used to tell about it with each other. Okay, there were no any written text at that time. Okay, they do not only religious rituals but also ideas about life, society, and the universe. Okay, the culture that developed from these teachings, called Vedic culture, has influenced many beliefs and traditions in India even today. That means today also many peoples believed on these Vedic cultures and follow its principles. Clear? What are the Vedas? Okay, now let's study what are Vedas actually is. Okay, so Vedas are ancient texts from India. Okay, this is considered basically of four Vedas. And what are those? Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and the last one, but not the least, that is Atharva Veda. Okay, and it is believed that the oldest one is Rig Veda. Okay, the Vedas contains thousands of rhymes, which are prayers written in the form of poems, songs. These rhymes were not written down but recite orally. That means through orally we have recited this. Okay, passed down through generations. These rhymes were this is very important to understand that these rhymes were composed in the Sapta Sandhava region. Clear? The Rig Veda, the oldest of four Veda, it is believed, but many experts believe that the time period given that is not the correct. So, experts have given their own correct time period of Vedas, that is 5th and 2nd millennium BC. Okay, which is a very long time ago. Okay, this is clear. Next, we have who wrote the Vedic hymns. That means we have seen so many Vedic hymns, poems, cultures, and literatures are written in these. So, who actually have written all these? So, basically, these hymns were composed by rishis, okay, which are male sages, and then we have rishikas, which are female sages, okay, female sages, in an early form of Sanskrit, an ancient Indian language. Okay, so in this language, we have written these hymns. So these sages addressed various deities. Okay, so we have studied that these sages have written all these, all these texts in Indian ancient Indian language. Okay, which are both males and female sages. Okay. Now, what they have addressed various deities which are based on gods and goddess in their poems, such as Indra, Agni, Varuna, Mitra, Saraswati, and Rishas. Okay, so you will see all these names in the deities. Okay, which they have written. The rishis and rishikas, were these deities are different as different names from the same supreme reality as the famous hymns put in. Okay, so this is a famous hymn which they have put it in their text. Okay. Next, we have what was important in the Vedic worldview. Okay, so we have studied among so many things, but what is actually important in all these? So the Vedic worldview, okay, is that how truly and how beautifully they have identified the world. They have the teaches us so many beautiful things about life and about so many things. The first important is one of the important thing is truth. Okay, they talked about the power of truth. okay, which was considered name for god. Okay, the Rig Veda also emphasized the importance of unity among people, encouraging them to come together, speak together, and sharing a common purpose with each other. Okay, for example, one Rig Veda says, come together, speak together, comment by your mind, may your thoughts agree, united be your purpose, united be your heart, and may your thoughts be united so all may agree. Clear? So this is what a beautiful line which tells us that we all should unite. It may possible that the thoughts of every human being is different, but the purpose should be same, and this is how every human being can unite each other. Okay, so this is the purpose which this Vedic world we are trying to say and trying to convey this message to others. Okay, next we have Vedic society. So early Vedic society were made up of different janas or clans, okay, which were large groups of people. Okay, the Rig Veda mentions over 30 such clans, including the Bharats, Purus, Kurus, Yadus, and Turvehas. Okay, each clan was linked to specific area in the northwest part of India. There is limited information about how these clans was governed because this is a very long time ago, so there was no enough written text and information regarding that. The Vedas offer some insight with terms like Raja, which is the ruler who ruled the entire community, Sabha, and Samiti, which refers to gathering or assembling of peoples. Okay, the Vedic text also mentions various jobs, including agriculturist, farmer, weaver, potter, builder, carpenter, dancer, barber, and priest. Okay, so this is how we came to understand that these Vedic sculptures really had a brief knowledge about the jobs and the duties of the people. Next, we have core values. What are the core values of it? Okay, so in this worldview, certain values were particularly significant, starting with truth, which was often regarded as another name for God. Okay, so I already mentioned that truth was a very major belief in this. Okay, the final verses of the Rig Veda also urge unity among people. Okay, that means this Rig Veda also talked about unity and come together, speak together. Okay, so the same line which we have read earlier is written over here. This much is clear. Next, we have Vedic school of thoughts. That in Vedic school, what were the thoughts of the people? So, Vedic culture developed various rituals called yajna, which is often pronounced as yagya. Okay, you must have heard this term yagya. Okay, through the through religious people aimed at different deities of personal or community benefits. Daily rituals typically included prayers and offering to Agni, the fire deity, but they became increasingly intricate over time. A collection of text which is known as Upanishads. Okay, so this is important to understand. Upanishads is a collection of text, okay, which is expanding on Vedic text and ideas. Introducing concepts like rebirth. Okay, rebirth means birth, born of a person again. Okay, which in Hindi we called as punarjanam. Okay, and karma, the principle of cause and effects actions. Okay, that means whatever the human do, he gets the fruit like that. Clear? From a philosophical viewpoint called Vedanta, everything human life, nature, and the universe is viewed as one defined essence called Brahman, not to confused with the god Brahma or simply that. Two well-known mantras express these ideas. Okay, so Aham Brahmasi, I am Brahman. That is to say, I am divine. Tat Tvat Asi, you are that. Okay, so this is such a beautiful line which is expressing the viewpoint called Vedanta in everything like human life, nature, and universe. Okay, I hope this is clear. Next, we have Upanishads, which I already told you. This is a collection of text. Introduce the idea of Atma or self. Okay, we call this now our Atma, our self inner, self inner mankind. Okay, which is the divine essence of which every being ultimately one with Brahman. This concept suggests that all things in the world are interconnected and dependent on one another. That means no one can individually live its entire life. Everyone, anyhow, any point are interconnected with one another. A common prayer reflected the idea begins with Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, okay, which means that may all creatures be happy. Clear? This continues with wishes for freedom from disease and sorrow. That means with this wish that we are wishing that may all creatures be happy is making the people who is in sorrow, depressed, and sad, converted into the freedom and happy person. Clear? Now, birth of new philosophic schools. In the early first millennium BC, various philosophic schools arose from the Vedas, including yoga. Yoga developed practices aimed at realizing Brahman's inward consciousness. These diverse schools of thoughts collectively form the foundation of what we now call Hinduism. Okay, that means this foundation, which are collectively known, is now given a term which is called Hinduism. Clear? For instance, the Charvaka school, also known as Lokyada, claimed that the material world is the only reality, denying life after death. Clear? Now, while the Vedic, Buddhist, Jain schools have significantly differences, they are also shared essential concepts like dharma, karma, rebirth, and the quest, and sufferings, and the ignorance, along with many important rules. So, see, these important rules are made so that we are able to control the bad activities of people. Okay, these were the thoughts that rebirth. Okay, actions based, happenings. Okay, so all these are the important values and ideas in this in these texts. Clear? Now, many archaeologists and scholars suggest that some aspects of Indian culture root trace back to Indus or Harappan or Sindhu Saraswati civilizations. Okay, so we already studied about Sindhu Saraswati civilization in the beginning of the chapter. Okay, I hope you are able to relate. Next, we have Buddhism. Okay, so from here, most important part is going to start from this chapter. That is Buddhism. Okay, so I hope you must have a basic idea about it, that how Buddhism actually started. So this is a story of a prince, of a royal prince who converted, who denied her royal life and started living as a sadhu. Okay, basically like that. Okay, this is a broad story. Let's study deep about it. The life of Siddharth Gautam. Okay, so the name of that royal prince is Siddharth Gautam. Okay, who transferred his life from a prince to the Buddha. Okay, so what is the story? Actually, it is a story about 2500 years ago. Okay, where a prince named Siddharth Gautam was born in Lumbini, okay, which is now in Nepal. Okay, so he was born in Nepal, you can say. Okay, so Lumbini in a UNESCO World Heritage Site, showing his importance. He grew in a very sheltered environment. Okay, that means he was from a very royal family, from a rich family. He was a prince. Okay, so definitely he was very rich in the palace. At 29 years old, he ventured into the city for the first time. That means he was roaming outside from the palace. Okay, what he saw the dead body, he saw an old man, he saw a sick man. Okay, and from this point he changed his life. Okay, he saw so many sufferings around people, and he also saw happy and peaceful, no doubt, but what main reflected his mind is that how sorrow and how happiness are distributed among people. Okay, so these experiences led Siddharth to leave his royal life. Okay, and he wandered as an ascetic, meeting others and seeking the root cause of human suffering. Okay, so this is how he changed his life from a prince to the Buddha. Okay, and from here the Buddhism was started. After meditating for many days under, this is very important, he was meditating under the people tree in Bodh Gaya, okay, which is now in Bihar, known as Bodhi tree. Okay, this is important to note that he was meditating under the tree which is now known as Bodhi tree. Okay, he achieved enlightenment. He realized that avidya, ignorance, and ignorance and attachment are such sources of sufferings, and developed a way to overcome these issues. Okay, and he became known as Buddha. Okay, because he was full of enlightenment and full of satisfaction towards something. Awakened one, and he was the enlightened one known between people, among peoples. Okay, so the Buddha began teaching in his insights, including the principle of ahimsa. Ahimsa is non-violence. Okay, this was also the Mahatma Gandhi also tried satyagraha based on this. Ahimsa, ahimsa means non-violence. Okay, based on satyagraha, you can say, like satyagraha. Okay, the following saying of Buddha expresses the importance of his inner discipline, that how he sacrificed his royal life and turned into a life of Buddha, which shows his inner discipline and inner beauty. Clear? Next, but one is pure in whom truth and dharma reside, conquering oneself. See, this is a very important line, that conquering oneself is greater than conquering of thousands of men on the battle of 1,000 times. That means this is very, very much better to conquer oneself. That means ourself, to win ourselves is much better than winning thousands of people in a battle. Okay, what they're trying to say is winning ourselves is more important than winning others. He founded the Sangha, a community of bhikshus, which means monks. Okay, bhikshus means hota hai monks basically, and later bhiksunis, which is nuns, dedicated to practicing and spreading teachings and highlighting the significance of his community, preserving the shares of Buddhas inside. Okay, so this is very easy to understand. Teachers also play the same role. Okay, so you all are students, how you're getting these knowledges, because teachers are teaching you. Okay, later on, if you will become a teacher, or if you will not become a teacher, but anyhow, any moment, you will share this knowledge to others also. Okay, so this is how they are also practicing this same thing. They are also preserving and sharing the Buddha's insights by spreading and highlighting these languages, these thoughts in text. Clear? And this is how Buddhism was established. Stories from the Upanishads upon asking questions. Okay, so here three stories are given which tells us the importance of asking questions. So through this, you also have to understand that you are learning something, that it's necessary to ask questions rather than adapting things without thinking. Clear? So first story we have Shweta Ketu and the Seed of Reality. Okay, so in this story, there was a there was a boy named Shweta Ketu who returned after 2 years from Gurukul. Okay, so Uddalika noticed Shweta Ketu had become quite proud of his knowledge. So to test his knowledge, he asked questions from whom? From Shweta Ketu. Okay, and what he asked about Brahman, that what Brahman basically means. Okay, but Shweta Ketu did not able to answer. So Uddalak explained Shweta Ketu that what is the meaning of Brahman basically means. Okay, so he gave some examples like banyan seed is also a Brahman tree. Okay, why? Because Brahman is everything. Brahman is everything where which arises from the same essence. Okay, so this is how he gave the two examples of banyan seeds and clay pots and explained him the meaning of Brahman. Okay, which enhance the thinking of Shweta Ketu. Okay, about a particular thing. Okay, that means he was in Gurukul for 12 years, but still he did not even know the meaning of Brahman. Okay, so this is how questioning is very important. Okay, next story we have Uddaleku lastly concluded Shweta Ketu by stating that you are that Shweta Ketu, stressing the link between Shweta Ketu and Brahman. Okay, that means he emphasizes that Shweta Ketu is also that Brahman because he acquired that knowledge like that. Next, we have Nachiketa and his quest. That how this is a Katha Upanishad. That means this story is an Upanishad. Okay, which is a collection of text. That how asking questions is important for everyone, whether it is a child, women, or men. Okay, so earlier we have studied the questioning of men. Now we are studying about how a child questioned. Okay, so once a man was giving away all his possessions in a ritual, so his son Nachiketu repeatedly asked which god he would be offering to. The father became angry and replied, "I give you to Yama." He said this in an angry way because Yama was Yama was called the god of death. Okay, that means who would take the life of someone, right? So he said this in aggressive manner to his son, whose name is Nashiketa, right? So Nashiketa then made his way to Yama's realm, and after a long wait met the powerful god, which is Yama. His main question was about what occurs after the body dies, because he was the death of god. Okay, so he was asking about what occurs after the body dies. After the body dies, what happened to the body? So Yama initially tried to dodge Nachikeता's question. That means he was trying to escape from his question, and but he persisted. Okay, he tried. Pleased with his resolve, Yama revealed that the Atma. Okay, so what does Yama replied with to the question of Nachiketa, that death of his question, that what happens after the body dies? So he replied that Atma self is hidden within all living beings. Okay, so this Atma is hidden within all living beings. It is neither born nor dies. Okay, it is immortal. Basically, with this profound knowledge, Nashika returned to his home where his father, welcomed him with joyfully. Okay, next third example we have Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Let's talk about it, where a woman questions to a person. When wise King Janaka announced a prize for his winner of a philosophical debate, Yajnavalkya, a well-known rishi, came to the king's court and defeated many scholars. Okay, but when Gargi who is a Rishika, asked him a series of questions about the world and finally about Brahman. So Yajvalkya asked her to cease her inquiries. Later, Gargi continued her questioning, and Yajvalkya explained that Brahman is the force behind the world, seasons, rivers, and everything else. Okay, so through questioning, they are able to know and enhance their thoughts of thinking. Clear? That's why questioning is very important. Through these stories, we have understand this. Next, Buddhism is over here. We are going to start next topic, which is Jainism. Origin and teaching of Jainism. Let's study how basically Jainism has derived and what are the teachings it convey. So Jainism is an important religion that gained popularity around the same time as Buddhism, when Buddhism came. But it is believed to have older origin. Okay, that means it is believed that Jainism is older than Buddhism. Like Siddharth Gautam, Prince Vardhaman was born in a royal family in the early 16th century. Similarly, he was also born in the city of Vaisali, which is presently located in Bihar of India. Clear? At the age of 30, okay, Prince Vardhaman when Prince Vardhaman was of 30, he decided to leave his home, and the reason was same as Buddha was, to seek spiritual knowledge. He followed a strict ascetic lifestyle, and after 12 years, he attained what is known as infinite knowledge. Okay, that means in order to gain more and more knowledge, he left his home and started gaining spiritual knowledge or supreme wisdom. He received the title Mahavira, meaning great hero, and began teaching others. Okay. Sorry. The first may be illustrated by the saying of Mahavira. The first may be illustrated by the saying of Mahavira. Okay, so these are the words of Mahavira. Okay, let's study. All breathing, existing, living, sentiments, creatures should not be slain, not treated with violence, not abused, not tormented, not driven. Okay, that means they're trying to say that means every person has right to live with freedom, to live with dignity. Okay. Jain teachings focus on several key principles. Let's study all these also. First, we have already read, that is ahimsa, which is based on non-violence. Okay, next we have anekanta veda. Okay, which means truth has many sides. Not a single statement can define this word completely. Next we have aparigraha. Okay, this concept means no possessions and encourages detachment from material goods, suggesting we limit ourselves to what is truly needed in our life. Okay, so what basically they are trying to say is non-possession. Okay. Next we have Jainism. Also highlight the interconnectedness and interdependence of all beings, from human to microscopic organisms, as they rely on one another and cannot exist each other. Okay, so you can understand that almost every religion is saying the same thing. Okay, that means Buddhism was also saying the same thing, and Jainism is also saying that every human being is interconnected with each other, and whether it is a microscopic living organism or a human being. Okay, so everyone are dependent on each other and cannot survive alone without helping, without others, you can say. Next, Buddhism and Jainism, monks and sometimes nuns travels to share their teachings, establish new monasteries, okay, in various places, while others choose to live in a static in canvas. Archaeological findings have revealed many remnants of these monasteries. Okay, including names of monks who lived in rock-cut caves, slept on stone beds. Okay, during that time, there are also other schools of thought, such as Charvaka schools, also known as Lokyata. We have also studied this, which believe that only the material world exists and that there is no life after that. Their schools did not gain much transactions and eventually disappeared. Okay. So this Lokyata thing we already discussed in the beginning of the chapter. Highlight the school shows the diversity of beliefs, allowing individuals to choose what they want, what they found meaningful. Okay, that means if we have different diversity in beliefs, that people will have own right to choose what they actually fond of, what they are actually founding interest, and that will their student are fully, they have full right to go in that field, whichever they wants to go. Although the Vedic, Buddhist, and Jain traditions had distinct differences, they also shared some common ideas, including dharma, okay, which is duty or rightedness. Okay, so this is a thing which is common in all the traditions. Next, we have karma, okay, the law of cause and effect, which we discussed in the middle of the chapter. Next, we have rebirth, birth, janam, I can say, the cycle of birth and rebirth. Clear? The quest for an end to suffering and ignorance. We also discussed all these things in the middle of the chapter. That means all these things are repeating in all the religions. But these are the main principles, so we are reading all these again. These common ideas can be seen as a trunk of the tree representing various paths. Clear? Okay, what they're trying to say that suppose it is a tree. Okay, so it's this what the scientific tree represents the various parts. Okay, so this what are they are representing? These representing the various parts. Okay, and what trunk representing? Trunk representing the common ideas can be seen. Clear? Next, we have Buddhism and Jain stories and their important lessons. Let's study. Okay, this is one of the interesting part. Buddhism and Jain stories teach us important lessons about how to live a good life. These stories show the values of kindness, doing the right thing and changing for the better. The Buddha and Mahavira, the founders of Buddhism, okay, and Jainism, shared these lessons through simple stories. There are two stories that teachers help us and make good choices in life. Okay, so what are the good choices they are talking about? They are talking about the changing of the better, the right thing, and the value of kindness through the stories they are giving us. Okay, and we have already discussed that Buddha was discovered by Siddharth Gautam when he was doing, meditating under the Bodhi tree. Okay, and Mahavira was also a person who discovered Jainism. Okay, when he left his place through through the desire of gaining spiritual knowledge. Okay, so this is important to remember. Let's study the stories which they have told us. The Jatak tale of the Monkey King. Okay, so the Jatak tale have entertained both children and adults in India for ages, telling stories of the Buddha's previous lives and teachings, Buddhism values in an easy way. In a well-known tale, the Buddha was the leader of a large group of monkeys. Okay, these monkeys live near a magnificent tree that produces delicious and fragrant fruits. One day, despite the Monkey King's order to protect all the fruits, a ripe fruit fell into a stream below. The current carried the fruit away, where it got caught in a net and it was taken to the palace. The king tasted the fruit and was so impressed by its flavor that he sent his soldiers to find the tree it came from. After searching for a long time, the soldiers discovered the tree and saw the monkeys enjoying the fruit. The soldiers attacked the monkeys. The Monkey King realized that the only way to save his troop was to help them cross the stream. Okay, the Monkey King realized that the only way to save his troop was to help them cross the stream. Okay, so this was the only method to save them. But they could not it alone. Being much bigger, the Monkey King held on a tree on the opposite bank, allowing his body to be used as a bridge, even though he was badly hurt and eventually died. The king, observing from afar, was deeply touched by the Monkey King's selfless sacrifice and reflected on a king's duty to his subject. Okay, so you have realized that how Mother King sacrificed, even they were ready to sacrifice their lives, and this was make the king full of sentiments, and he was now recalled his duties. What were the king's duties? He has now able to recall and neglected his decision now. Next, we have Jane's story of transformation. Rohingya was an exceptionally skilled thief who managed to avoid capture. While on his way to a city, he accidentally overheard part of a sermon by Mahavira. Let's read it again. While on his way to a city, he accidentally overheard part of a sermon by Mahavira about attaining freedom from a life of ignorance. Okay, so this was the principle of Mahavira. When he reached the city, Rohingya was recognized and arrested. He pretended to be a simple farmer. Okay. A minister came up with a clever plan to make a Rohingya reveal his true identity. However, Rohingya, recalling Mahavira's teaching, was able to see through the minister's trick and evade it. Feeling guilty, Rohingya approached Mahavira, admitted his wrongdoings, returned to the stolen items, and sought forgiveness. He then became a monk, recognized the illusion he had been living in, and focused on gaining deeper understanding. This tale highlights the significance of right actions and thoughts, and it underscores that one deserves a second chance. Okay, so this is a beautiful story again. Okay, which teaches us that how Mahavira accepted, that how with the help of Mahavira, his belongings, his ideas, his teachings helped this man to understand and realize his, realize his mistakes. And even though this is important, that everyone deserves a second chance. Okay, so he got a second chance, and now he was doing the things great. He was taking right actions and understanding the things deeply, and left stealing. And even he returned all the steel items. Okay, which shows that how powerful Mahavira's teachings and beliefs is if a person realizes mistakes, okay, and understand them deeply. Next, we have folk and tribal roots. Okay, let's study this topic. India's culture and roots are well documented. Okay, that means full of in documentations and all, and rich in our rich history of oral traditions, where the teachings and practices were shared through everybody's life without written text, as seen in the case of Vedas. Okay, so in the case of Vedas, we saw that there was no written text. Orally, we communicated, we transmitted, we highlighted the text and information to each other. Okay, but later on, the written text was established, but for a long term, orally communications were done. Among these traditions are folk traditions passed on, common peoples and tribal traditions shared by tribes. There has been a constant interaction between folk and tribal traditions and the leading schools of thoughts mentioned in his chapter. Okay, these concepts, legends, and rituals have been exchanged in both directions. For example, Jagannath worshipped in Puri. Puri is now in Odisha. Was originally a tribal deity. This also applies to various forms of mother goddess worshipped across India. Some tribes have also adopted Hindu deities and possess their own versions of Mahabharata and Ramayana, as noted from India's northeastern states to Tamil Nadu. This long interaction has resulted in mutual enrichment. Folk and tribal beliefs and practices also contributed to India's cultural roots. Okay, so this is not as much important for exam point of view, but you should have a basic understanding about folk and tribal traditions and their relations. Okay, what is a tribe? Additionally, I'll tell you, tribes are those basically who depend on, who do not own their private property and depend on the nature and worship that. Okay, so here our chapter completes. We have discussed all the important topics related to this chapter. I hope you have understood the origin of Buddhism and Jainism and all the important factors which we have discussed in this chapter. Thank you.